Hey, Sonny here, and in this video I just wanted to talk a bit about Kanade and Mafuyu's bloomfes cards. In my Kana 6 deep dive, I originally had a section where I went on a tangent about Mafuyu's bloomfes card, but then when I was editing I decided to cut it since the video was already getting way too long and it wasn't too relevant. So instead I thought, why not just make a separate video that covers both of them? Because just look at these cards. There is so much going on with them. So let's start with Kanade. Kanade's bloomfes card released in June of 2024, after Reeling in the Lights and right before Path of Thorns. The bloomfes stories introduce us to a new type of fragment of feelings, known as the shard of feelings. These shards break off from the fragment of feelings, and if they are left ignored, then the feelings within them will disappear. Kanade finds one of these shards, and she's teleported to her own fragment sekai, where she meets a younger version of herself. And this little Kanade reminds her not to forget the happy memories of her childhood again. Due to all of her trauma surrounding her mother's death and her father's hospitalization, Kanade repressed her memories from her childhood. But then, through the encouragement of her grandma, Enna, and Kaito, Kanade has slowly started to remember things and is working through her grief. And this little Kanade is basically telling her not to forget it all again, since they are all important memories to her. In the Untrained card, we can see a younger Kanade happily running through her memories, reaching out to touch a picture of her family specifically. Some other notable pictures on this wall are the time MacLeod went to Phoenix Wonderland together, one of MacLeod's restaurant meetups, little Kanade playing with blocks, Kanade and her dad looking at a cat, Kanade's 4th birthday, Kanade playing tug of war at preschool or something, the tea party that Kanade held for all of her friends, and little Kanade listening to her dad play his guitar. And this is probably the moment from the Carnation Recollection story. Apart from photos, the wall is also adorned with carnations to represent Kanade's mum, and a guitar to represent her dad. And then we have the trained art. And the shift in tone is enough to give you whiplash. Kanade is depicted as a Grim Reaper, and that's not just me saying that, the art director himself said it. We got some extra insights to this card on a special live stream featuring the game's art director, Izuka Kohei. They even showed us a first draft of this card, which was even less subtle, and obviously a little too much for the game. This card is supposed to depict Kanade's relationship with her father, and the impact that she feels she had on him. And thus, Kanade thinks of herself as a Grim Reaper, a being that robbed her father of his happiness and future. She is surrounded by various bones and wields a large scythe, which is really cool, not gonna lie. I love that they depicted her with it again in other artwork. If we zoom in, we can see that Kanade is crying, her expression full of regret and guilt. This card is completely devoid of color, mainly being white. And in Japan, the color white can be associated with death and mourning, as the deceased are typically dressed in white kimono for funerals. The anguish that Kanade feels towards what happened to her dad is on full display here. It's a completely unfiltered look into her mind, which is something that we rarely get to see. If you knew nothing about proseka and saw this cute little bean, I doubt you'd expect her to be compared to death itself. Taking a look at Kanade's outfit, removed from the context of the card, she actually looks more like an angel. However, we can see a ring on her ankle, and to me this reads as a shackle that's binding Kanade to her post. She can't disappear, but she can't live freely either. She's chained to her post and must continue making songs to save other people from their despair. Rather than reaping people's lives, Kanade instead reaps them of their sorrows, while remaining unhappy herself. Also, I like how the black color alt makes it look as though Kanade is an android or something, and her synthetic skin is malfunctioning in certain places. Kind of like A2 from Nier Automata. Next we have Mafuyu. In the card story, Mafuyu discovers a shard of feelings, and we see that a past version of herself has fallen asleep. And if Mafuyu can't find out what feeling caused this shard to break off, then this other Mafuyu won't wake up and the feeling will disappear. So this sleeping Mafuyu will disappear, basically. However, Mafuyu can't see anything through the thick fog in her fragment sekai, so the child version of herself switches bodies with her, and then she's able to see clearly. It's later revealed that the sleeping Mafuyu was the one that Kanade promised she'd make a song for. So in other words, Mafuyu subconsciously tried to throw away her desire to be saved by Kanade. Why? because Mafuyu doesn't want to see Kanade overwork herself to achieve this goal. Mafuyu's Bloomfes card was released in March of 2026, after Amid the Wavering Light. So this means this story takes place after the events of Unreliable Notes, where Mafuyu saw firsthand just how much hyper-focusing on the goal of saving her is negatively affecting Kanade. Mafuyu doesn't want to see her friend suffer, and as Kaito put it, Mafuyu prioritized Kanade's well-being over her own desire to be saved. And this just shows how much Mafuyu has grown. She used to be entirely fed up with everything and pushed Night Court away when they tried to help her. Kanade eventually convinced her to calm down by promising she'd save her, and Mafuyu clung to this promise. Back then, both of them were only thinking about how it would benefit themselves. But now, Mafuyu has become genuine friends with the rest of Night Court, and they all mean a lot to her. She's started to notice that Kanade is overworking herself, and she wants to help her, but she isn't entirely sure how. And that's why she almost let go of her desire to be saved by her song entirely, because she doesn't want to be a burden on Kanade. And this is why I was originally going to bring this card up in the context of Kana 6, because that event is about how Kanade needs to realize that her current codependence on Mafuyu is starting to have a negative effect on both of them. In Mafuyu's Untrained, the child version of her is seen sitting at a desk with an apple on it, indicating that she's a star student. She's gazing at some pictures, but it's impossible to make out what they actually are. Maybe my eyes are just bad, but that just looks like nothing to me. The wall behind her is decorated with awards and photos. There's her at archery club, her and Shizuku, Mafuyu reading alone in the library, Mafuyu with Emu at the sports festival, little Mafuyu playing in the snow. That time Mafuyu and Kanade played the public piano together. I love that we have a visual of this now, by the way. A shrine visit with Kanade, a family photo, and little Mafuyu building a snowman. On the bookshelf sits Mafuyu's rabbit plush, a picture of sliced apples, and the picture book that Mafuyu used to love as a kid. Then we have the trained art, which is gorgeous by the way. Mafuyu is standing with an apple in her hand and a vague smile on her face. She has a single wing sprouting from her back, and it's reaching out to wrap itself around this clock. This clock is similar to the one seen in Nihil-san's 3D MV, and its hands are sitting at 1 AM, so it's supposed to represent Night Court. If the apple represents Mafuyu's mother, then her placement here would be Mafuyu realizing that when she eventually goes back home again, she'll still have Night Court as her support. The way that she's holding the apple could also represent her taking control of her life again. Behind Mafuyu is a wall filled to the brim with picture frames, and most of these are cards from previous events. What's interesting though is that unlike in the Untrained, where we can see the memories clearly, here it's only zoomed in crops of the cards, mainly just focusing on the backgrounds themselves, and the rest of the frames are just clouded over completely. I'm not going to go over what each of these cards are specifically, but they are all previous Mafuyu cards. A bright light is shining down onto Mafuyu, not only illuminating her, but also the dull room that she's standing in. To me, this room resembles Mafuyu's empty fish tank, and by meeting Night Court, her world slowly grew brighter. Just like her Sekai, she isn't empty anymore, and the clouded over frames are instead being filled with new memories with her friends. Behind Mafuyu, there is also a big crescent moon and a fish tank with 2 plush bunnies inside it. And these are the 2 main things that intrigue me. Because a moon similar to this one is seen in Kofuku K's 3D MV, but no such moon is present in Kanade's Bloomfes card. The only real connection between their 2 cards is the fact that both of their outfits have wing in the title. And then these bunnies in the fish tank are just way too random to not represent something. Since it's a black and a white bunny, it's likely a reference to the picture book that Mafuyu used to read as a kid. In Mafuyu's Colorfest card story, she recalls that the book was about a black rabbit who was having trouble sleeping. So it snuck out of its home and that's how it met the white rabbit. And Mafuyu can't remember the rest of the story. Mafuyu's mother threw this book away at some point, but at the end of the Colorfest story, Mafuyu decides to buy a new copy from the bookstore. But as far as I'm aware, they've never actually followed up on how the rest of this story goes, so I guess it's left up to our own interpretation, unless it's hidden away in some card story that I haven't read. In Night Court's first World Link event, Mizuki and Rin read a picture book that came from the lake, and it features a rabbit as the protagonist. But I don't think this is the same picture book, or at least it's not the original story, since this book is just a retelling of Mafuyu's current story so far, and there is no mention of a white rabbit. In this story, Mafuyu is represented by a rabbit, Kanade a dog, Enna a hedgehog, and Mizuki a cat. In the case of the original picture book, the black rabbit is obviously supposed to represent Mafuyu, so then the question is, who is the white rabbit? You could make an argument that it's Kanade, since she has light-coloured hair and Mafuyu ran away to her at night in Saying Goodbye to My Persona. Or it could be Miku, and the original picture book was foreshadowing how Mafuyu would discover her sekai. If we look at Mafuyu's Colorfest outfit, she is dressed as the book itself, with the two rabbits hanging from her waist and another black rabbit charm in her hair, it being clear that this book was a core part of Mafuyu's childhood. Like, she's cosplaying it and everything. We often see her with the black rabbit plush, but in the background of her childhood room, we can also see that she owned a white plush to match. And then looking at her Bloomfest card again, not only is her dress both black and white, but her hair has white streaks through it as well, and it's styled in twin tails just like Miku. To me at least, it feels like they're trying to tell us that the black rabbit and the white rabbit are one and the same, and that both of them are actually supposed to represent Mafuyu. The empty sekai was born from Mafuyu's feelings, and Miku would be included in this, because she spawned with the sekai. So unable to sleep one night, Mafuyu ran away to her own world where she could be free from everything, and that's where she met Miku. In the fish tank, the white rabbit is flopped over the black one, and this could be taken in two different ways depending on who you think the rabbit is supposed to be. If it's Miku, then this would be her kneeling by Mafuyu's side to comfort her. But if you think it's Kanade, then this could be her trying to tie Mafuyu down and keep her within the fish tank. Or maybe I'm completely off the mark and these rabbits are supposed to represent something else. If you have any ideas, feel free to let me know in the comments, because again, this visual is just way too random to not be here for a reason. Mafuyu's outfit is interesting. Her dress is white with a snowflake motif, but then underneath we can see a puffy black dress is trying to break free. And the way that I interpret this is that the white dress represents the perfect persona that Mafuyu wears, whilst the black dress underneath represents her true self that still hasn't been fully realized. I think the flowers on her chest are either ornithogalums or jasmine, and both of these flowers' meanings could tie in with the white dress being a perfect facade. The black dress climbs out of the collar and decorates Mafuyu's back, and she has a single black wing sprouting from it. This wing resembles a stained glass window and is the same one that's reaching out for Nightcord. In the name of this outfit, the word for wing is specifically used for insect wings, so this would tie in with all of the moth and butterfly imagery associated with Mafuyu. As for why she only has one wing, if we consider the framing of the card again, I think this implies that when Mafuyu was living with her mother, her wings had been taken away from her. However, through finding Nightcord, Mafuyu was able to grow back one of these wings and find her own freedom again. Her shoes are heels made of ice, which is very Elsa of her, and on her right foot we can see a butterfly shape. So perhaps Mafuyu is working towards recovering her other wing as well. There are also little butterflies in her hair, which are very cute. As for the snow motif, it's likely a reference to Mafuyu's name, which means the middle of winter, as well as her online handle, which means snow. It could also play into the outer layer of her dress, like melting away. Overall, this card has a hopeful vibe, and it feels as though Mafuyu is getting closer to discovering her true self, which is in complete contrast to the overwhelming despair that is Kanade's card. Someone tell her it's going to be okay, please. Anyways, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. Feel free to let me know your own thoughts and interpretations in the comments. And yeah, see you next time. As for why she only has one wing, it's because she's Sephiroth.